For the second time this year, the UFC heads north of the border, but this time with a fight night taking place in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, headlined by two flyweight matchups. First, we have the women in the co-main event as former strawweight champion Rose Namajunas looks to put Erin Blanchfield on a two-fight losing streak after Blanchfield came up short against Manolfio earlier this year, who is also the woman to hand Rose Namajunas her lone flyweight loss. And then in the main event, we have former flyweight champion Brandon Moreno looking to knock off rising contender Amir Albazi, who's been out of the cage since June of 2023. Just a reminder, this is the quick picks version of the UFC Edmonton breakdown. If you're looking for the full in-depth breakdown for this podcast or this UFC Edmonton card, you can check the link in the description below where I dropped a podcast earlier this week going nearly an hour on this 14-fight card. Again, I'll be leaving out a lot of the details in these quick picks just for the sake of time, getting right to the point of every single matchup. But if you are questioning some of these picks, check out the full MMA Logcast episode, as I said. Just also a quick plug as well. There's also Cage Warriors and ACA going down Saturday morning, serving as an appetizer for this UFC Edmonton card. The best way to get written breakdowns for those cards is through the MMA LOT and Patreon page. Make sure you guys check out the link in the description below, not just for those breakdowns, but a ton of other great perks, breakdowns, degenerate plays, same game parlays. We have it all covered on that Patreon page. Check the link in the description below and continue to tell your boy who is on a career year in terms of units made, track plays, and all that good stuff. Check out the link in the description below. All right, hope you're laced up and ready to go because we're off and running with the first fight of the night between Jamie Lynn Horth and Ivana Petrovic. I believe Horth's physicality and ability to put Petrovic in bad spots and keep her there will allow her to grind this fight out and pick up a win by decision. Next up, Chad Anheliger going up against Cody Gibson. Unfortunately for Anheliger, I believe Gibson is just a much better and more experienced version of him, utilizing a very solid boxing and slick a combination striking approach, but also his wrestling, which should be the X factor in this fight, will keep Anheliger on the defensive for the most part, allowing Gibson to win this fight on the scorecards. Next up, Series Sidey going up against Garrett Armfield. Sidey will have the clear striking advantage, but as long as his defensive grappling improvements showcase here, he should be able to keep this fight in the striking realm, batter Armfield, and finish him in the second or third round. Next up, heavyweights going at it as we have Alexander Romanov going up against Rodrigo Nascimento. Romanov is very dangerous early with how strong and powerful he is with his wrestling, but I believe Nascimento will be able to stay out of too much danger, allowing him to pull away in the second and third rounds and probably getting a finish late. Next up, Jack Shore going up against Youssef Zalal. A lot of people loving Zalal because of the run that he's on since returning to the promotion, but Jack Shore is dealing with some recency bias here, hence why he is a big underdog. I believe his relentless wrestling style can still prove fruitful, especially with him starting his career off with a 16-0 perfect record. I don't think Zalal presents the athletic and physical dangers that Shore's opponents recently have presented him, allowing Shore to get to his wrestling, and that should be enough for him to grind this fight out and spoil the Zalal winning streak. Next up, Charles Jourdain going up against Victor Henry. Jourdain making his bantamweight debut this weekend. Unfortunately for him, the UFC has pitted him against a very experienced and difficult opponent. Henry has never been finished in his 30-fight career, and I expect him to go out there and put a pace, pressure, and volume that Jourdain is not used to, allowing Henry to grind this fight out and win it on the scorecards. Next up, Ariane De Silva going up against Jasmine Jasudavicius. Lipski has shown some defensive grappling improvements in the past, but I believe it's been the lower level of grapplers that she's been facing and showcasing those improvements against that has caused her success. But we saw last time around against Karine Silva, it will be difficult for her to deal with fighters that are more impressive and successful in that realm. And that's exactly what she's facing this weekend in Jasudavicius, who should be able to put that grind on her, put her in uncomfortable positions, chain wrestling attempts together, and win this fight on the scorecards. Next up, Ayman Zahabi going up against Pedro Munhoz. Zahabi is on a Cinderella run right now as he has pulled off upset victories in all of his last 4 wins. Look for him to go out there and pick up his biggest victory this weekend as he outstrikes and outvolumes Munhoz en route to a decision victory. Next up, Mike Malott going up against Trevin Giles. Malott looking to bounce back from that loss to Neil Magny back in January. Unfortunately for him, I think he's going up against a very difficult opponent here in Trevin Giles. Sure, Malott can land that big power and put Giles away, as durability has always been the issue for the veteran, but I believe Giles' striking, speed, and overall advantage here should allow him to put a pace on Malott and run away late with this matchup and end up getting a finish in the 2nd or 3rd round. Next up, Marc-Andre Barriault going up against Dustin Stoltzfus. Barriault is coming back too quickly after getting knocked out at the end of June by Joe Pyfer, but I do believe if his durability holds up here, he should do a good enough job in terms of putting pace and pressure on Stoltzfus and finishing him in the 2nd or 3rd round via TKO. Next up, Caio Machado going up against Brandon Ribeiro. Machado is going down to light heavyweight for the first time in his UFC career after starting his run with the promotion at 0-2. But I do think this is a very winnable fight for him, where he should be able to have the overall advantage and grind Ribeiro out, winning this fight on the scorecards. Next up, heavyweights Derek Lewis and Jonathan Diniz throwing down here. Lewis always has that nuclear option to put his opponents away, just as he showed in his last matchup against Rodrigo Nascimento. But I think Jonathan Diniz will showcase a very disciplined striking game, allowing him to batter the lead leg of Lewis, counter him effectively, and then finish him in the 2nd or 3rd round by TKO. Co-main event 5-rounder here between Aaron Blanchfield and Rose Namajunas. Namajunas has shown tremendous defensive grappling improvements, and I believe that will get her a victory here over Blanchfield. Look for Namajunas to win at least 3 of the 5 rounds here by outpointing and outdamaging Blanchfield and winning this fight on the scorecards, positioning herself very well for a potential title shot or #1 contender fight. And the main event now, as we have former champion Brandon Moreno coming back from a hiatus, going up against Amir Albazi. Moreno looked very un-Moreno-like in his last performance against Brandon Royval, and I think this layoff will do wonders for him as he goes up against a guy who's going to be looking to take him to the ground. I think we've seen good enough defensive work from Moreno in the past, specifically against wrestlers, and that will allow him to keep this fight in the stand-up round, where he has the 5-round experience, striking advantage, and not to mention a cardio advantage that should allow him to go out there and batter Albazi in 3 or maybe even 4 out of the 5 total rounds and winning this fight on the scorecards. There you guys go. Full card breakdown, or at least quick picks version of the UFC Edmonton breakdown for you guys. I'll be back tomorrow for the Lockheed 2-step, Lockheed Trinity free parlay, as well as the 3 best prop bets for UFC Edmonton. I'll see you guys then. Peace.